Hi, guys. It's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. All right. We made it to the 100th episode of the OJ Simpson trial. Can you believe that? We've met together 100 times watching talking about the same thing over and over again. We're still talking about 11 cents, 11. No one's going to say any different. I don't care what was there. 11 cents, ice cream, and dogs. We still haven't gotten to the glove. We're still on the ice cream and the dogs and the heart that was left by the 11 cents. But we are March 6th. Nope. Well, we made it to March 7th. I forgot. We made it to the first part of March 7th last time. Oh, no. No, I'm not. I'm not muted. You can't hear me? Oh, I'm going to lose it if you can't hear me because I'm not muted. No one can hear me. Oh, thank you. Jenny, turn your volume up. Turn your hearing aid up. Thank you, Malta, thank you, Terry. I was really worried there for a second. But that would be right with the 100th episode that I would be muted. That would be right on cue for me. No, I didn't share my screen before I started, so you can't see OJ. The audio is on. I just clicked it. So you should be able to hear this. We're not at 150 yet. We're at 100 for us, and we're at 142 for this. So what is today? Where are we? We have I think we're going to be able to start the second part of March 7th today if I don't pause, which I will pause probably. You know me, shoot myself in the foot.
All right. Let the record reflect that Detective Tom Lang is still on the witness stand. Good morning, Detective Lang.
Morning, Your Honor.
You're reminded you're still under oath.
Yes.
Mr. Cochran, you may proceed with your cross-examination.
No, Mr. Cochran, you can sit out.
Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Detective Lang.
Right.
At the end of the day, yesterday, we were talking about the meeting that had taken place, I believe, on June 14th, 1994, at the SID lab. And I'd ask you to refer to your chronological record, page 00007. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And in that meeting, you would indicate that you had conferred with criminalists Matheson, Wong, Yamauchi that morning at about the time or before the sneakers were turned over. Do you recall that?
I believe I conferred with Matheson, and Wong and Yamaguchi were present.
Now, would you be surprised to learn that the SID unit has never had a Mr. Wong in the last 17 years?
I don't know.
Would you be surprised to learn that?
Not necessarily.
Could you have misplaced and meant Fung when you said Wong?
Certainly possible.
Now, in fact, you did, in fact, see or talk with Mr. Fung that particular morning, did you not, of June 14th, 1994?
I may have.
Have you seen the property report with regard to the Reebok shoes that were turned over?
I believe I have.
Counsel. I want to place before you the property report. I think it's dated 6/15/94, and it deals with item number 18 of evidence. And read that to yourself, and I want to ask you a question with regard to it.
Okay.
You read that?
Yes.
And does that refresh your recollection as to what time you actually turned the sneakers over to to the individuals at the SID lab?
It states 8:30. I turned them over to Mr. Matheson at approximately 7 a.m. for an examination.
All right, and that was some kind of a determination to determine whether there was blood on those tennis shoes?
Yes, I requested that he do a presumptive examination.
And that examination, the presumptive examination, took only a few minutes, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And then I think you've testified before that these tennis shoes were negative for blood, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so, well then, was that around 7 o'clock you did that?
That's approximately the time that I arrived and turned them over, yes.
All right, and then what happened for the next hour and a half or so, if you recall?
I wasn't there for an hour and a half.
So where the property report indicates that it was received from Detective Lang at 8:30 on 1/14/94, is that correct?
I would say that it was received by the lab at 7 a.m. or approximately 7 a.m. and was probably turned over to Mr. Fung at approximately 8:30 as indicated by Mr. Matheson.
All right, and this report is a report done by Fung and Mazzola, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I perhaps should mark this report since I'm referring to it. The defendant's next in order.
Well, no,
10.
actually, no foundations, not the witness is prepared.
10:48.
1040, all right, D1040. All right, and so,
We're not talking about admissibility. It's marked for identification purposes.
and read this middle part here read that to yourself with regard to the criminalists in the lab.
Okay.
You read that?
Yes.
All right. And you were aware that the item we're talking about, the Reebok, was in fact recovered by criminalist Fung in the particular lab on June 14th, 1994. Is that right?
That's what it states.
All right. Is that your understanding also?
I believe that's a figure of speech as far as being recovered.
Okay.
It was taken into his custody. I'd imagine you could say it either way.
All right. Or received. Is that a fair statement?
Certainly.
All right. Can you tell us or describe for us the equipment that's kept in your vehicle when you go out to the scene of a homicide, such as plastic bags and things of that nature? Can you describe that for us?
I do have some plastic bags, envelopes, disposable rubber gloves. I believe we have an AIDS kit.
What is that?
AIDS kit for the recovery of syringes.
All right. Anything else you can recall?
Notebooks, pencils, flashlight, rules, measuring devices, measuring tape.
Gun,
Now,
handcuffs.
you had several conversations with Ms. Radcliffe, the coroner's investigator, on the morning of June 13th, 1994. Is that correct?
I had conversation with her, yes.
Can you give us an estimate of approximately how long you talked to her that morning while she was at the scene?
There were more than one conversation. It was off and on. I was doing other things, and I really couldn't say.
You have an estimate at all of how long altogether you may have spoken to her in all the various conversations, sir?
As far as strictly conversation,
Yes, sir. Conversations.
it's very difficult to say.
Do you have any estimate at all?
I couldn't pin myself down to an estimate. Perhaps strictly conversation, maybe 15, 20, 25 minutes, maybe longer.
All right. Somewhere 15 minutes or longer. Would that be a fair statement?
I don't know.
All right.
I just don't know.
And you have no notes which refresh your recollection in that regard?
As far as how long that I spoke with her,
Yes.
I wouldn't have anything like that.
All right. Now, yesterday we touched upon briefly the fact that your notes do not reflect any spots that resemble blood on the rear gate. Do you recall that?
That's correct.
And in addition to that, you did, in fact, a diagram or a sketch of that rear gate in your notes also, did you not?
Yes.
And you don't place any spots or any indication of any blood in your diagram in your notes either, do you?
No, I wouldn't have done that.
All right. So the answer is you do not have that in your notes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to the scene at Bundy, and on one of the videos, we saw that at some point a sheet.
Okay, let's think about that for a second. So there was blood on the back gate. The lead investigator does not have it in his notes that there was blood on the back gate. All right. So, does the lead investigator, hi, David, does the lead investigator have to have every single piece of everything in their notes? I mean, you would expect they have a lot, but there's other investigators getting stuff. The whole forensics team is getting stuff. The coroner's getting stuff, evidence and just other things, pictures and videos and testimony in interviews. So I don't see, okay, I'm not the jury and I don't know what they're thinking, but the lead investigator can't have all the information. Like, it's an investigation. So as it goes forward and forward and forward, he gets more and more and more and more and more information, right? So there's no way for his notes from that day to have all of the information. There just isn't. That's why there's an investigation. You can't really have all the information before you have the whole investigation, before they do all the work. They've been working and gathering stuff for what, over a year now, right? So he's making a big deal of this, that one drop of blood was not in his notes. Is that a big deal? Did the LAPD drop the ball on that one or not? I get it. I understand. The LAPD dropped the ball a lot during this case. There was food and used gloves on the bodies. Come on. They have a video of him throwing the shoes, which had no evidence, no blood, no hair, no nothing on them, in the back of his car instead of in his trunk. And then turning it over to forensics the next day. So, I mean, I guess I would be more iffy if he turned him over to forensics the next day and there was all this blood and hair and fibers and all this on the shoes. Get down. Yeah, I mean, it takes a long time to gather all the information. There's no way on that day that Cochran is talking about right now that he could have had everything in his notes, because they are still gathering information. But I don't think the jury thinks that. You know what I mean? I think the jury is probably buying this. Whoa, he missed that piece of blood in his notes. So, they really must have dropped the ball. I don't know.
Sheet was either placed over the body or a sheet was over the body. You recall seeing that?
I believe it was a blanket, yes.
All right, and it was white in color, was it not?
That's correct.
And with regard to that, this particular sheet or blanket, do you recall whether or not that sheet was taken and booked as evidence?
No, I don't believe it was.
Was there
That's
one blanket or sheet for each body, or was it the same sheet for each, or for the two bodies? Did you have two sheets or one sheet?
No, there was only one sheet, and that was to cover the one victim from public view.
All right, and that was the Miss Nicole Brown Simpson?
That's correct.
And when that scene, the crime scene, was broken down, that sheet was just left on the ground, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Now, it's important, is it not, as an experienced investigator, for you to attempt to preserve any possible trace evidence, isn't that correct?
Trace evidence, certainly.
Right. And trace evidence can be very fragile, isn't that correct?
It can be.
And so that we're clear and we're talking about the same thing, what is your definition of trace evidence?
Trace evidence can be hair or fibers or any other type of evidence, debris that may not be readily visible to the human eye.
And trace evidence can be moved from one surface to the other pretty easily, isn't that correct?
I guess that would depend.
And that might be particularly true of things such as hair and fibers, isn't that correct? That might come off a body.
It's possible.
Blood on a body can be wiped off if the body comes in contact with something of the nature of either a sheet or a blanket. Isn't that correct?
It would depend on how that blanket or sheet were placed on the body.
But the blood
No, nope, you can't get me there in a million years because the blanket wasn't put on the body the second they died. It was after a while. There's no way that blanket, just by touching the body, wiped the blood off. It just didn't. Maybe some blood got onto the blanket. That I will go with. But wiping the blood off the body didn't happen. It just couldn't have. The blood was dried or almost dry. You know what I mean? There's no way.
could in fact come off on that. Isn't that correct, sir? On a sheet or a blanket?
Overruled.
I wouldn't know. It would depend on if the blood were dry or if it were wet and how the blanket or the sheet was placed.
Right, but it's possible
have
that
to
it could come off.
wait.
Isn't that correct, sir?
Suppose
No.
it's possible, yes.
No.
In fact, in this case, there were what you have testified about blood drops, blood spatters on the back of Miss Nicole Brown Simpson. Isn't that correct? You saw at the scene,
Yes, I did.
which were not preserved. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Did you take any steps to make sure those blood drops were not wiped off by this blanket or sheet being placed over Miss Nicole Brown Simpson?
Yes.
What steps did you take?
To place the blanket very gingerly over the victim. When the blanket was removed, the blood spots were still intact, as evidenced by the photograph.
And when you saw this, when was the last time you saw this blanket at that scene that morning?
When I left,
And what time was that approximately?
approximately noon, I believe, perhaps 12:15.
It's when you left to go downtown.
That's correct.
And at that time, and so that we're clear, that particular blanket was white in color, was it not?
Yes, it was.
And it was never preserved or kept or booked by anyone, as far as you know, the LAPD. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, I want to show you at this point now, sir, a video and ask you a couple of questions after it's shown. Okay.
Which video is this, Mr. Cochran?
We dealt with it at the end of the day yesterday, Your Honor. Video of detective.
The shoes being thrown in the back seat, I bet. We're not going to get to see the video. Come on, cameraman, back up a little bit. More. Oh, we can almost see the video now. Almost, a little bit.
Those two members of the Los Angeles Police Department.
Yes.
This is at the Rockingham residence, is it, sir?
Yes.
And who's that gentleman who the camera's focused on there?
It's my partner, Mr. Van Adder, and myself.
And is that you? What does that, stop it right there? What is that under your right arm there?
It's a pair of Reebok tennis shoes, size 12.
Those are the tennis shoes we've been talking about?
Yes.
All right. And the gentleman walking with the tennis shoes on his arm, that is you, is that correct?
Yes.
In the Rockingham location at this point?
Yes.
And after you closed the door, did you drive off from the location at that point?
Yes.
And Your Honor, I'd like to mark that tape, I guess, as defendant's next note, I guess, defendant's
1049.
10.
He should have said, I don't remember. He should have said, I don't remember. After the camera shuts off, do you drive away at that point? He should have said, I don't remember. Because, you know, he could have faked it. He could have said, I believe I put the gloves in the the shoes in the trunk. after that video cut out. But no, he just made sure the jury knows that the shoes were never in his trunk, even though he said they were in his trunk. So he's a liar.
49.
Is that correct, Mrs. Robertson? Clarify, 1049.
Did you have occasion to discuss the contents of this tape with the district attorney since we were in court last evening?
The contents?
Yes,
No.
what was on this particular tape?
I've seen the tape many times. I haven't discussed it.
Okay, the question is, did you have occasion, did you discuss this with the district attorney since we were in court last evening?
No,
Did not discuss it last night?
that's correct.
Not discuss it this morning?
That's correct.
And at the conclusion of that tape, after you placed those Reebok tennis shoes in the front seat, did you drive off?
Yes,
Did you go home at that point?
yes, I did.
Did you see that whether or not it appeared to you in that video those shoes were placed in any kind of a box?
Those shoes were placed in a box once I returned to my home and placed into the trunk of my vehicle.
When you got home?
That's correct.
I see. But you didn't do that at the scene there, is that correct?
As your tape shows, there was quite a bit of media. I was getting pushed and shoved, and my only interest was to get away from the media. That was done at my house.
That sounds like an assault on a police officer, and you could have just shot them.
I see. So when you testified about it before, you didn't tell us about the media, did you?
I didn't tell you about the media?
Yes, you did not tell us when you testified.
Yes, Your Honor.
Legal ground.
Wasn't asked.
Overruled.
When you testified before that you placed the Reebok shoes in a box in your trunk that particular day, you never told us that you had placed the Reeboks under your arm, placed them in the front seat of your car, and drove all the way home. Is that correct? Did you? You never told us that, did you?
I don't believe I was ever asked that.
The question is, did you tell us that?
I wouldn't have answered that.
Overruled.
Did you tell us that?
Could I have the question again, please?
Right. Did you at any time ever in the presence of this jury tell us that you had placed the Reebok shoes under your arm and placed them in the front seat of the car and drove all the way home before placing them in the trunk? Did you ever tell us that?
No, I believe I told you that I placed them in the trunk of my vehicle, and that's ultimately what happened.
Right. I'm asking you, did you tell us that you placed them in the front seat of the car, Detective?
I had absolutely no reason to tell you that, no.
And what is your answer? Did you tell us that?
No,
You did not.
no.
Just say no. Marsha can clean that up later. Just say no and move on.
Did you see Mr. Fung at the Rockingham location at about after 5 o'clock that afternoon?
I
on June
did, yes.
13th? You saw him there?
I believe so.
And you talked to him that afternoon?
I believe there was some conversation, yes.
Could you have given the shoes to Mr. Fung at Rockingham that afternoon, since he ended up getting them the next morning on the 14th?
Apparently did, but I wanted to take them to the lab and have them examined there. I wasn't aware Mr. Fung was going to be at the lab. Mr. Fung works at Northeast Station, which is some distance from the lab.
Well, Mr. Fung was the criminalist who had been at the scene collecting evidence, both scenes, Rockingham and Bundy, all day that day. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And you could have given these Reeboks to him. Is that correct, sir?
I could have. Mr.
But
Fung
you-
was a very busy man. I wanted
Alright.
these done, presumptive tests done at the lab and turned over at that time.
I'm sure he was a busy man. The question is, you could have given these Reeboks to Mr. Fung on that Monday evening after 5 o'clock in the evening. Isn't that correct?
I could have, certainly.
And what time was it that your best estimate that you were getting in the car and placing these Reeboks on the front seat? What time was that?
I don't know, perhaps 6 o'clock.
On June 14th?
No, it would have been June 13th,
I mean, June 13th. And how long was your drive home?
approximately an hour.
And how many miles is that?
It's approximately 36, 38 miles.
And it's your testimony that there was no way you could book the items, the Reebok shoes at that time of day because the property room was closed and you couldn't get a DR number?
Well, not only was the ECU closed, there was no DR number that had been obtained. The criminalist was booking the items and they had to each be given an item number.
And with regard to a number of other items that recovered at Bundy and or Rockingham, the criminalists booked those items themselves. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I believe in the 15th.
But this one item you brought back the next day on the 14th morning, right?
That's correct.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor.
Ms. Clark?
Clean it up, lady. Clean it up.
Detective Lang, let's talk about those Reeboks for a minute, sir. What size were they?
Size 12.
And were you aware of the size of the, are you aware of the size of the bloody shoe prints at Bundy?
Yes,
And what size are they?
size 12.
Now, the sole pattern of the Reeboks, as far as you know, did not match the pattern of the bloody shoe prints found at Bundy. Is that correct?
Sustained.
Do you happen to know, sir, whether the sole pattern of the Reeboks that you seized from Rockingham on June the 13th matches the sole pattern found from the bloody shoe prints at Bundy?
Yes, I do.
Sustained. Want to rephrase the question?
Certainly, Your Honor. The Reeboks that were pointed out to you at Rockingham on June the 13th, which you took into custody, are you aware of whether those sole patterns matched the sole patterns of the bloody shoe prints found at Bundy?
Yes,
And do they?
they do not.
Now, who pointed those shoes out to you?
Mr. Simpson, the defendant.
And pursuant to what? How did he happen to point them out to you? Did you ask him a question?
I asked Mr. Simpson if he recalled what shoes he was wearing the previous evening, and he pointed them out and stated that he believed that those might be the shoes that he had on.
And based upon that, you took them into custody.
That's correct.
But in fact, the pattern did not match the shoe print at Bundy.
Leads
Foundation.
pleading.
But the shoe pattern of the shoes that he pointed out to you, claiming that he had worn them the night before, did they match the shoe pattern of the bloody shoe print at Bundy?
Overruled. Overruled.
No, they did not.
And you were attempting to also test them for blood. Is that why you took them into custody, sir?
That's one reason.
It is.
I'm sorry. Your Honor.
Slow down. We got all day.
That's what I was hoping to avoid. But okay. Sir, why did you take those shoes into custody?
Because Mr. Simpson said he believed those might be the shoes he had on the night before. I wanted to determine the size of those shoes, and I wanted to determine whether or not they might contain blood.
And is that so you took them, I think you testified earlier, to SID?
That's correct.
And what time did you take them in?
I arrived at SID the following morning at approximately 7 a.m.
Okay, what test did you request be performed on them?
A presumptive blood test?
And are you aware of the results of that test, sir?
Yes,
And what are the results?
negative.
No blood.
That's correct.
Do you, excuse me, Your Honor, may I have?
Come on, Marcia, you got this. Let's go.
You were asked earlier about a green piece of paper found in the grocery bag containing Ron Goldman's clothing that he wore at Mezzaluna on the night of June the 12th.
Time out.
Recall that?
Time out. I think we have to ask the Goldmans to step out.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, folks.
Oh, I would not want to leave that courtroom if that were me
Ms. Clark.
and that were my daughter.
You recall that, sir?
Yes,
And that green piece of paper, what did it look like to you?
looked like a shopping list.
And are you presently aware of where that came from?
Yes,
And where's that?
Overruled.
I was approached by Mrs.
Sustained.
Do you know where it came from, sir?
Yes,
Well, he can say he knows where it came from, yes or no. What the answer is probably going to be hearsay. You're right. Says he can say yes or no. He's aware.
yes,
Okay. Are you the source of that, sir?
No.
And the grocery bag in which the clothing was contained, did the police department provide that grocery bag?
no.
The clothes and the contents of Ron Goldman's apartment, can you tell us what was done with them?
As far as the clothing, most of the items of clothing were picked up by the family.
And so the family took the items of clothing?
Sustained. Rephrase the question, please.
Who took the items of clothing out of Ron Goldman's apartment?
The Goldman family.
And you saw yesterday the clothing that was in the shopping bag?
Yes.
Okay. Was that clothing ever in police custody?
No.
Do you happen to know how that,
That's vague.
Or will,
do you happen to know how that clothing came into the presence of this courtroom?
haven't we had testimony from Ms. Goldman about this? I think the jury knows where the clothes came from.
Okay. Well, then perhaps I should advise the court and counsel that the next witness will be Patty Goldman. Okay. Counsel? The next witness will be Patty Goldman. Sir, do you know what kind of shoe created the shoe print found, the bloody shoe
Excuse me,
print
Ms.
found
Clark.
at Bundy?
I'm sorry, are we done with the clothing
Yes, we are. We're done
aspect?
with the
All right,
clothing
Ms. Moran, would you invite the Goldmans back, please? Thank you. Ms. Clark?
Thank you, Your Honor. Are you aware of the type of shoe that created the bloody shoe print found at shoe prints found at Bundy?
I think you can ask, has he conducted investigation regarding the type of shoe?
Have you conducted investigation regarding the kind of shoe that created the bloody shoe prints found at Bundy, sir?
Yes, I have.
And what kind of shoe is that?
Say Bruno.
Calls for a conclusion at this point. Since I think we're assuming facts that aren't in evidence at this point.
That's true. We're going to get to it, though.
Okay, well, let's, all right, I'll sustain the objection at this point. I'm sure we'll hear a lot about shoes.
That's true. I mean, we will. Sir, you indicated that, excuse me. You indicated that you did not diagram any of the blood on the rear gate at Bundy.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you create diagrams of the Bundy location, sir?
Yes.
And is that part of your crime scene notes?
Yes.
Did you diagram on those notes anywhere any of the blood that was found at the scene at 875 South Bundy?
No.
There you go, Martha. Good girl. Good girl.
Now, you indicated that it was indicated in your notes that you saw 2 dimes and 2 pennies at the rear driveway of 875 South Bundy. You recall that, sir?
Yes.
You also reviewed all the photographs, did you?
Yes.
In any of the photographs, did you see 2 dimes and 2 pennies?
No, that's a mistake, and I erred in writing 2 down.
So that was a mistake you made in your notes.
That's correct.
All right. You're a human being?
Hope so.
All right.
Self-serving.
Overruled.
I do make mistakes.
Now, you indicated that you booked the change and that,
Mr. Carter? I heard the comment.
Put him in jail.
I heard the
Lock
comment.
him up.
Proceed.
Lock him up.
you booked the change and the banana label, that label that you pointed out in the picture. You indicated you booked them on June 15th.
They were actually booked by the criminalist, yes.
Okay, could you, were they seized on the 13th, sir, those
Yes.
items?
Yes.
All right, so tell us how that works. Why is it that it was seized on the 13th, but the paperwork shows booking on the 15th?
When the criminalist seizes an item, for all intents and purposes, it's in police custody and booked. It's just not administratively correct until a number is assigned and it gets placed into an environment and logged in. But as far as our purposes go, when the criminalist takes possession, it's in their possession, it's been booked. The other is just an administrative process.
Okay, so was it in the custody of the criminalist from the 13th when it was picked up at the scene?
As of the 13th, that's correct.
Okay. So what does the date of June the 15th reflect?
The actual day that it was logged in to property, when a DR number had been assigned and actual item numbers had been assigned to each item.
Did that mean that there was any change in the way in which it was being secured or kept?
Sustained, fleeting.
Does the, what is the date of, from June the 13th to June the 15th, with respect to those items, sir, or any of the items that we've talked about, does the date of June the 15th reflect any difference in the manner in which the item's being kept?
No,
Overall. Overall.
no,
So is there any custodial significance in terms of where the items are being kept in the date of June the 15th?
no, it's all in possession.
Custodial is kind of a vague question. It's a
Yeah.
vague term.
Let me try and be more precise, Detective Lang. Is there any, does the date of June, what does the date of June the 15th reflect with respect to where the items of evidence are being kept or held?
Nothing. They're all in the possession of Scientific Investigation Division. That's just a formal logging in or booking of the items.
Now, you indicated that you did not diagram any of the blood at the crime scene at 875 South Bundy.
That's correct.
Why not?
That's not normally something that I would do. If there would be any diagramming at all or collection, that would be under the purview of the criminalist.
Okay, which would be Mr. Fung.
Yes.
Overall.
All right, you indicated, sir, I believe earlier that you booked the that little plastic heart that was found on the ground on August 25th.
That's correct.
Where was it before then?
It was secured at Robbery Homicide Division, Parker Center.
Okay, so what is the difference between being booked and being secured in the robbery homicide division?
The difference is that it has not been assigned a booking number and it hasn't actually been logged in at Property Division.
What about the integrity of the item itself? Any
Remains-
difference there?
No, it would
We
remain
stay
the
in
same.
purgatory because of it.
Deputy, seize that beeper, please. Deputy Russell. Thank you. Proceed.
All right, were you present when the blood sample was taken from the defendant?
Yes.
And where did it go after that?
It went into my partner's possession.
Detective Van Adder?
Yes.
And then what?
It's my understanding that it was transported.
Sustained.
Okay. Did you see it after the blood sample was drawn from the defendant and given to Detective Van Adder?
Yes.
When did you see it?
At the time it was withdrawn and turned over.
Okay. And after it was turned over to Detective Van Adder, did you see the blood, the vial of blood again?
No.
So were you around when that vial of blood was ultimately booked into evidence or into SID?
No, that was booked by criminalist Fung. I wasn't present.
Sustained. We'll strike the last part of the answer. The answer is no, since he wasn't present.
Right.
Proceed. Jury should disregard the last part of that answer.
So do you know when it was ultimately booked?
No.
Or by whom?
No.
All right, you were talking about hair and trace evidence. Remember that we talked about the knit cap that was found next to the glove under the plant at 875 South Bundy?
Yes.
And did you conduct any investigation to determine whether there was any hair or trace evidence to be found on that cap?
I personally did not. There was one conducted.
And are you aware of the results of that examination?
Overruled. He can say yes or no, he's aware.
Yes.
Was there anything about the results of that investigation into the hair and trace evidence in the knit cap that caused you to eliminate Mr. Simpson as a suspect?
No.
Objection, move strike. I'd like to put on object as hearsay. With my direction.
Let me see counsel at the sidebar with the court reporter.
When you see him, please slap him very hard so he remembers next time he makes a stupid objection, he'll find out. He's gonna find out. Please don't make me go back in time, come into that courtroom, Judge.
Yes, Detective Lang, did you review the reports of the criminalist analysis of the hair and trace evidence found on the knit cap at 875 South Bundy?
Yes.
And engage in conversations concerning the results of that analysis, sir?
Yes.
And based on all of that, was there anything that caused you to eliminate Mr. Simpson as a suspect in the case?
No.
Seriously.
Overruled.
No, there wasn't.
Now, did you examine the reports of criminalists and experts concerning the analysis of the blood found on the glove at Rockingham, sir?
Yes.
And the reports that you reviewed,
All right, counsel, let me see you again at the sidebar.
That's what he wants the jury to think.
All right, thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Sir, after the, was the Bronco found parked outside the gate, the defendant's Bronco parked outside the gate at Rockingham seized on June the 13th?
Yes,
And was it submitted for testing?
that's correct.
And the glove found at Rockingham, was that seized on June the 13th?
Yes,
Submitted for testing, sir?
yes,
And the knit cap, was that seized on June the 13th as well?
yes,
And also submitted for testing?
yes,
And the blood, at the blood trail found at 875 South Bundy, was that collected on June the 13th also?
Sustain. Characterization is trail.
Okay. The blood drops found going on the walkway from the victims out to the alley behind 875 South Bundy, were those collected on June the 13th and submitted for testing?
yes.
Now, when was it that you submitted the case for filing?
June 17th.
By that time, sir, were you aware of the results of the testing of the blood collected at 875 South Bundy?
Yes,
And were you aware of the results of some of the tests conducted in the on the blood seized from the Bronco and submitted for testing?
yes,
And by that time, were you also aware of the results of the testing of the glove found at Rockingham?
yes,
And upon becoming aware of all of those results, sir, what did you do with the case?
Overruled. Overruled.
I presented the case to the district attorney's office to seek a filing.
All right, sir, before you left you were at Rockingham initially, is that correct?
Initially,
I
as
mean,
in-
before you went back to Bundy to do the actual crime scene investigation. I'm sorry.
that's correct.
Overruled. It's foundation.
Yes,
At the time that you left Rockingham to return to Bundy, what was your state of mind concerning what you thought was going to happen with a criminalist to respond to Bundy?
right.
Sustained.
Well, did you call for another criminalist to proceed to the Bundy location when you left for Rockingham?
No,
Overruled.
No.
Why not?
because it's my understanding that the criminalist
Overruled.
was to proceed to Rockingham and do a quick presumptive test on the blood that's on the door of the Bronco and then proceed directly to Bundy. So there was no need to.
Okay, so when you went back to Bundy, what time was it?
I believe I arrived approximately 6:45 or 6:50 a.m.
And what was your expectation when you got there regarding a criminalist?
That the
Overruled.
criminalist would be forthcoming shortly.
Did you ever walk down that front walkway that leads from the sidewalk up to the steps at 875 South Bundy?
No.
Do you know who did?
Yes.
Who?
Sustained.
Did any member of the police department wash down that front walkway?
No.
To your knowledge, was the rear area and the rear gate area in the driveway of 875 South Bundy ever washed down?
It was not.
Now, after the investigation of the crime scene at 875 South Bundy was completed on June the 13th, how was the location maintained with respect to the gates?
Both gates were closed and locked and the house itself was locked and secured.
How many units are there in that at 875 South Bundy, sir?
It's a duplex. There are 2 condos attached.
Okay, so Nicole and one other.
That's correct.
You indicated on cross-examination that there were reports of public people at Bundy. Do you recall that?
Reports of people?
Public people around the area of 875 South Bundy.
There were, yes.
And public, I mean, as opposed to police
about-
people,
Non-police, non-residents.
non-police, non-residents.
There were.
Are you aware of, you're aware of those reports?
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. Cochran discussed those with you on cross-examination, you recall?
Yes.
What area around 875 South Bundy did those reports pertain to?
From the location.
Like around the sidewalk?
Sidewalk, yes.
Do you have any, are you in possession of any reports that indicate that there were non-residents lurking around the rear area of 875 South Bundy?
Sustained. Calls for hearsay.
Are you aware of any reported incidents concerning non-residents around the rear gate area of 875 South Bundy?
Sustained.
Was there the front and the rear gate at 875 South Bundy that we're talking about? Do those give access to the other side, to the other duplex in any way?
No.
Who has access to those gates? No, do those, you know what I mean? Do those gates go solely to Nicole's condominium, or do they also allow access by other neighbors?
Strictly to the one condominium.
You have to recall, I think the jury's seen the walkway and the gates.
It's been a while, so. Now, you indicated that you visited Bundy between June the 13th and July the 3rd,
Yes.
and do you recall why?
There were return visits to the crime scene to check on various things. I've never been involved in a crime scene investigation that I didn't return.
So is that unusual for you to do, to go back several times to a crime scene?
No, on the contrary, it's very usual, and that's something that would be done at every crime scene.
Well, can you tell us why?
Because initially, there may be things that you've missed. You may want to return at a different time of day. You may want to recheck what you've already done. You may want to search for additional evidence. There are all sorts of things that could happen over a period of time. You may not catch everything the first time because there's a lot going on.
And so did that occur in this case?
Yes.
So between June the 13th and July the 3rd, where did you go? Where about that location of 875 South Bundy did you go?
See if we can narrow it down a little more time-wise.
Okay. Do you recall how many times you went back to the location between June the 13th and July the 3rd?
I believe it was 2 or 3 times.
Okay. On each of those occasions, those 2 or 3 times, sir, do you recall where you went?
Yes.
Where?
To the front of the location, to the area, the vicinity where the bodies were located, and to the interior of the house, examine the interior.
Did you ever go to the rear gate area on any of those occasions?
No.
When, after June the 13th, was the first time you went through the rear gate area?
I believe that would have been July 3rd.
And on July the 3rd, on the first time you returned to the rear gate area after June the 13th, which was, as you've indicated, July the 3rd, what did you see?
Observed the smear of blood. First thing I observed was a smear of blood on the upper rung of the rear gate that I had observed on June 13th. Additionally, appear to be the same 2 droplets of blood on the lower rung of that gate.
The same two?
It appeared to be the same two.
The answer will stand.
Could you explain that, sir? You said the same two blood
It
drops?
appeared to be the same two blood droplets that I had observed earlier on June 13th on the inner lower rung of that rear gate.
And based on that observation, you did what?
Made an inquiry and requested Mr. Fung, the criminalist.
And were those blood drops on the rear gate submitted for DNA analysis, sir?
Yes,
And are you aware of those results?
yes, I am.
Now, I think you indicated also that on August the 27th, you took the defense team, the defendant and, the defense attorneys and their investigators on a walk through 875 South Bundy. Do you recall that?
And they're criminalists, yes,
And their criminalists?
yes.
And I think you indicated on cross-examination that their investigator, one of their investigators, pointed out change inside the garage of the location of 875 South Bundy.
I believe there was 1 or 2 pennies lying on the floor of the garage.
And did you seize those pennies?
No.
Why not?
Those pennies were isolated from the crime scene. The garage door was secured at the time this occurred. There was no blood in the garage area. There was nothing to indicate that any suspect had ever visited that area or that had anything to do with the crime scene.
Overruled.
Okay, what do you mean the garage door was secured at the time?
It was closed.
It was closed.
Overruled.
The garage door was closed at what time, sir?
At the time of the murder.
Overruled. Counsel. Overruled.
And you indicated also, so where were the pennies were inside the garage, sir?
Inside the secured garage, yes.
And on August 27th, did you see any blood near those pennies, sir?
No.
Now, conversely, you indicated to the jury that you, earlier, I believe, that you found a dime and the penny on the rear driveway that you saw on June the 13th to be important.
To me, it was, yes.
Can you tell us why?
The dime and the penny were in close proximity to the blood droplet in the rear alley that appeared to drop to me from a stationary source, indicating that source may have been standing still, reaching in their pocket perhaps for keys and inadvertently dropping the coins going for the keys. The blood droplet had no tailing and appeared to come from a stationary source.
All right,
And so-
we're going to take our morning break at this point. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute recess at this time. Please remember my admonition to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't let anybody communicate with you with regard to the case. Do not conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Stand in recess for 15.
I wonder if the jury members are still
Examination by Ms. Clark
harassed.
and Detective Lang.
With
Good morning
their,
again. You're reminded you're still under oath,
verdict.
Ms. Clark.
Sir, we were talking earlier about the Reeboks that the defendant pointed out to you on June the 13th.
Yes,
Okay, now I think you already testified that you took them at that point.
Overruled foundation.
You took them at that point from his closet, is that correct?
yes.
All right, and then where did you go?
I proceeded down to the first level and out to my vehicle.
Do you recall, sir, about what time it was when you did that?
I believe it was approximately 6:15, 6:30 p.m., somewhere in there.
All right, when you left the residence, when you exited the house at Rockingham, did you see Mr. Fung anywhere?
No,
Did you know if he was even still there at Rockingham?
I don't.
Overruled.
I don't believe he was.
All right, now we were talking earlier about just before the break, about the walkthrough on August 27th with the defense team.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Cochran mentioned something about a knit cap that was pointed out to you by one of the investigators or the criminalist for the defense.
I believe it was by Mr. Cox.
The judge really needs to stop him. He is breaking her line of questioning. He's breaking her concentration, and he is just wrong. And he keeps getting overruled. He's the one that presented these questions to this man. She has to clean them up. He knows. I mean, he can't be allowed to just object to every single one of her questions and break her concentration and mess up her questioning. The judge has got to stop it. None of his objections are okay.
Cochran himself.
Okay. And did you seize that knit cap that he pointed out to you, sir?
No.
Why not?
That cap was in the house on the upper level in front of one of the kids' rooms, and it appeared to be one of the kids' caps.
A child's cap?
Yes.
Did you ever ask that a tire track expert look at tire tracks in the rear alley behind 875 South Bundy?
No.
P38.
All right, sir, do you recognize what's shown in P38 on the screen now?
Yes, it's looking in the alley in a northerly direction behind the Bundy location.
And is that the alley behind 875 South Bundy?
Yes,
Okay, now is that alley, is it cement or is it asphalt?
it's asphalt.
And you indicated just now, sir, that you did not ask that a tire track expert examine the alleyway behind the location of 875 South Bundy.
That's correct.
Okay, could you please tell the jury why not?
It's a very commonly used surface. There are many, many tire tracks superimposed over one another, and there would just be no way to distinguish one from another.
And have you ever, well, when you were out there, did you look at the alleyway behind 875 South Bundy?
Overruled at this point.
Did you yourself look at the alleyway behind 875 South Bundy?
Yes,
Were you able to observe any distinguishable tire tracks yourself?
nothing distinguishable.
To your knowledge, sir, is there any way to tell when tire tracks are made?
I don't know of any.
Sustained. Do you want to do a little more foundation with this detective?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tire tracks.
Sir, have you ever asked that tire track experts be called out to a scene to
Yes,
examine? And have you consulted and conferred with them concerning their findings at any particular crime scenes?
yes.
On how many occasions, sir? Approximately.
There haven't been that many, quite frankly, 8, 10, maybe times the most.
And have you consulted with them about what they look for in tire tracks?
Yes,
And have you consulted with them about what they're able to tell you by looking at tire tracks?
yes,
And have you ever, have they ever testified in any of the cases that you have prepared or conducted the investigations in?
yes.
Based on your experience then with them, sir, are you aware of whether or not you are able to tell, they are able to tell whether, when tire tracks are made?
No,
Overruled. Overruled.
no.
No what?
I've never heard anyone be able to testify to the age of a tire track.
All right, sir. Now, you were asked also by counsel about whether or not any examination was done on the dog, Nicole Zakita, on his teeth to see if he had bitten anyone recently.
Yes,
Are you aware of any kind of examination that could ever tell you that?
I've never heard of one.
Now, you indicated that earlier on cross-examination as well that
Hold on. No,
the
no.
detective or
We're not letting that one just slide by. What? They wanted to test a child to see if they've bitten someone recently, and they want to know if there's a test that you can do on a child to see if they've bitten someone recently. I mean, I guess if there's still a chunk of the dog. Okay, I guess if there's like human anything in the teeth, that's the only thing I could. You can't test a dog to see if they've bitten someone. Thank you, David, because that makes way more sense. Although we have no evidence at all that anyone has gotten bitten by a dog, have we? Did the dog go up to the bodies? I know there was blood on the paw prints, but did the dog, go up to the bodies and mess with them after they died? Was there blood all over the face? I could have missed it. It's been 100 videos, and I get distracted sometimes when I'm text messaging people like I'm doing right now. That's why I only half heard. I don't know where this is going. I don't know. Hi, John.
Officer Hyder spoke
I know
to
the dog had blood on its
Sydney
paws.
Simpson. That's the little girl, Nicole's daughter.
One of the officers did, yes, I don't recall the name.
Did she bite someone?
And I think you indicated that you asked Denise Brown to speak to her, to Sydney. It's Foundation.
Oral.
Yes, I did.
Did you prepare a report of your request of Denise Brown to speak to Sydney Simpson?
No.
Okay, first of all, why didn't you write a report of that request?
The results of the interview were negative. There was no reason to.
Oral.
Okay, why didn't you have an officer speak to Sydney?
I was informed by Denise Brown that both children were under the care of a child psychologist, and that they not only thought it would not be a good idea for me to interview the children, but they would not permit it.
Does that continue to be the case, sir?
To my knowledge, yes.
Oral.
All right. Also, you indicated on cross-examination, sir, that you asked Detective Ron Phillips to speak to Officer Vasquez concerning Sydney Simpson and the contact that she had with the officers at West LA Station before she was picked up later in the morning. You recall that?
I believe so.
And you indicated on cross-examination that you made no report of Detective Phillips' conversation with Officer Vasquez concerning Sydney Simpson's behavior at the station. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Why was there no report written concerning Sydney Simpson's conversation or behavior at the police station?
There was nothing more to say. The report had already been written.
Can you explain that, sir?
The report was written as to the interview by the female officer. It went no farther than that. From that, I made an inquiry with the Brown family.
Okay. And then, so you attempted to follow up what was in that report through the Brown family?
That's correct.
I'm sorry. So after you read that report, sir, what did you do?
I contacted the Brown family.
And you made some request of someone in the family.
Yes.
What was that?
I requested that Denise Brown and the family talk to Sydney regarding the statement.
And did they do so, sir, at your request?
Yes.
And as a result of having done so, what happened?
I received a call a few days after that from Denise Brown. And she stated that she,
This is hearsay.
Did the information you received from Denise Brown cause you to generate any further reports, sir?
No,
Or conduct any further investigation, sir?
no,
Or attach any significance to the report written by Officer Hyder and Vasquez?
no.
Sustain. Sustain. Curious to disregard the last question and answer.
All right. When you were at Rockingham, sir, I believe you indicated that you were nearby when Detective Phillips made the phone call to Chicago to notify the defendant.
Yes,
And who were you with at that time?
I was in the vicinity of Arnell Simpson.
Okay. Now, on cross-examination, sir, you indicated in response to one of Mr. Cochran's questions that Arnell told you that Mr. Simpson was in Chicago, but that she told you that subsequent. What did you mean by that?
Oral.
By that, I meant that Arnell Simpson told me that after she made a telephone call to Kathy Randa.
Okay.
Prior
Okay.
to
Nope,
the
nope. Shh. We're done. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. We made it through episode 100. All right. Now we just need to rush to episode 200. We're going to do something special when we get to the glove. I wanted you to do something special for this one, but I didn't. I do want to do something special for the glove, though. And let's just peek. Let's just peek again. I think Lang, it looks like Lang's here, okay, on March 7th. That's what we're at today. We're on March 7th today. Well, March 8th, who the heck is that? Lang is still on March 8th. March 9th is when the party begins. So, no, David, your comment's fine. Perfectly fine. Now it's 8 o'clock. The courtrooms are opening. I gotta get to work. I gotta get to work. Bye, guys. Have a great day. Thanks for coming out.